Welcome to Atlas Core Learns From, and today we're joined by Alexandra van der Ploeg. She is responsible for setting strategic direction of corporate social responsibility at SAP, including corporate giving, volunteerism, and driving multi-stakeholder partnerships to bring SAP's vision and purpose to life, as well as to advance the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. She started her career at KLM in sales and joined SAP over 20 years ago in HR. She's passionate about making corporate contributions to social impact, and one of these is being a partner and a host organization to Atlas Core. They've hosted a number of fellows over the years. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Alexandra. And I want to get right to my 3 questions and start with the first one. How do you spot talent? What is the secret sauce in finding great, talented people?
You couldn't start with an easier question, right? No, it's a really good question. There was a time when I thought you could actually spot talent by sort of your first interactions with people. And while I still believe that is true, actually through my experience, especially in the last years, I've learned that to really understand talent and to really understand the potential that people have, it is actually better to spend a bit more time with them and to go on the listening journey with them first. So I think maybe to outline a little bit better what I mean with that, in 2019 it was now, I have to think a little bit because the pandemic has sort of jumbled up everything in terms of years. But in 2019, one of the last sort of big events that I attended was the Social Enterprise World Forum in Addis Ababa in Africa. And we had brought a number of young African leaders to the conference that are change makers already in the areas that they were working in, just, to network and to learn through the conference. And there were 10 of them there. And there was one in particular that I didn't have any interaction with, or not much, right? He was very quiet, a bit on the shy side. We didn't talk all that much, but his organization really interested me. So when we left Addis, I said to him, let's follow up. So I gave him my business card and I said, look, let's just have a call. I want to learn more about what you do. And he actually thought I was joking. He thought, oh, well, you know what, I'll just write her an email, but she's probably never going to respond. But I did, obviously, and we started having conversations about his work. And I spent, I would say, a good 4 or 5 hours with him over the course of 2 weeks, just to understand his organization. And I was so deeply impressed by him and what he's trying to do that I basically hired him more or less on the spot as an advisor to one of our key CSR programs that we run with UNICEF. If you had told me that I would do that when I met him in Addis, I would have probably said to you, no way, because there was very little interaction between us, and just from the way that he was in his presentation, I wouldn't have understood the depth of his potential and of his talent.
And in these hours of conversations, because it's fascinating, is there something you can point out, a moment where you felt this is really impressive about him?
I think it's when I understood his intrinsic motivation of why he was doing what he's doing, right? And then understanding through that intrinsic motivation how in a very short, he set up an organization at the age of 15, a nonprofit organization, very young. And when I met him, he was only 20. But he had set up a flourishing nonprofit organization by that time. So I understood his intrinsic motivation, but I also understood that within the short period of 5 years, he had gained so much business acumen and knowledge and experience that many of us haven't built up over years of working in the corporate sector, right? And when I understood that combination of his intrinsic motivation and his actual business acumen that he'd already been building up, that was what blew me away, and where I knew, okay, this is somebody that I want to work with, and somebody that I know is truly going to change the world in the future.
I need to ask, where is he now?
He's in the US. He's doing his master's right now. So I mean, the impressive thing with people like that is, you know, they have set up, they have their organizations, they are continuing their education, then they're involved, you know, and then he's a CSR advisor to us at the same time. So he's doing lots of different things, but he's managing his organization remotely.
Yeah.
But he was able to do that by actually building up a very strong leadership team that he really trusts. So he knows that operationally they're able to do the work, and he can concentrate on his studies, which is another impressive thing, right? I mean, that's one of the, you and I know, it's one of the hardest things to do, is to build up a really, really powerful leadership team. If you're able to do that at the age of 20 already, I mean, that's incredible.
That is incredible. And is that also your advice to young people, to remain persistent, to not give up, and continue to reach out to mentors and leaders?
I definitely think so. But you know what? My key advice would actually be to trust yourself and to trust your instincts, right? Because I think what happens sometimes, especially with young people and young leaders, and then sort of people that are a bit more advanced in their careers like I am, you know, sometimes the perception is there that young people cannot have that much experience yet, right? And that that they're here to learn from us. I actually find it's the other way around. But this is why my advice would be, is trust your own instinct and trust the experience that you've already been building up. And that experience can come from more than just work experience. It's your life experience that brings you to where you are. But it's that whole package that basically is really relevant in any kind of setting. And the other advice that I would give, next to sort of trusting yourself, is to always be really aware. And this is sort of a phrase that I took out of, that I translated from German, and you will probably laugh when you hear it. What I often say to young people is, everybody in the room that you meet, irrespective of how impressed you are by them, only cooks with water. So, you know, even if you think they're so much smarter than you are and they have so much more to contribute, the reality is it's probably not that way. You have just as much to contribute already today, and you're just as much of a leader, and you have just as much right to be in the room and to be at the table as everybody else has.
Especially if you're from a background that is not as well represented.
Absolutely.
In many of those rooms. No, I really appreciate that. Lastly, as an Atlas Core tradition, I want to ask you about your fun fact, the thing that makes people smile when they find out.
Well, I think the fun fact is probably that I almost gave up my career in the corporate world to become a dive instructor. I'm a passionate traveler. I love diving, and there was a time when I seriously considered giving it all up and you know, living the island life and just dive as a profession. So that never happened, but it's still something that I'm very passionate about.
Well, I appreciate you sharing it, joining this, and also I'm really excited about diving more into talent and potential with you and SAP in the future. Thank you for joining today.
Thanks so much for having me.